This is the 12th video of the Forged Fiction series. If you haven't seen the other videos in this series, check out the Forged Fiction playlist on our channel. You can click on the link in the description, or click the card in the top right corner of the screen. After our last video on the text of Galatians, I had little hopes for the rest of this series. That episode was fairly boring, because the biblical text has been changed as more scholarship has been done. This rule applies to most of the New Testament, but there has been so much scholarship on Galatians that scribal errors in it weren't too exciting. I think they were informative, but nothing mind-blowing. While researching for this video, I found a myriad of textual errors and interpolations on 1 Corinthians, and I picked out the very best for my audience. 1 Corinthians is an authentic Pauline letter written to the people of the church in Corinth. Paul had received a message from Chloe's people, or Chloe's household, about issues over which the Corinthians were divided, in 1 Corinthians 1:11, as well as in regard to some other matters about which the Corinthians had written to him, 1 Corinthians 7:1. Although 1 Corinthians is an authentic Pauline letter, that doesn't mean its transmission has been perfect. In fact, it's been rather poor. During the Hellenistic period, copyists would often place entire lines into the manuscript they were copying, depending on their own views or the views of the audience they were writing to. In the early church, there was an increasing popularity in the views on asceticism. There was a large emphasis on fasting, especially in association with prayer. It makes sense then that monks would include their own verses when transcribing these manuscripts to stress the point. This happened in many manuscripts. In the case of 1 Corinthians, we see the addition of fasting in 7:5. Do not deprive one another except when you both agree in time which you devote to fasting and prayer, and you shall again return to pleasure, lest Satan tempt you because of the desire of your bodies. The inclusion of fasting still exists in many Bibles today, but some have removed it. There are many mistakes throughout every Bible. These errors sneak in depending on what manuscript the translator is using. Different manuscripts are accurate to different degrees, and there is no perfectly translated Bible. The closest thing would be Mills' Apparatus, but that's all in Greek. Another mistake that appears in more than a few Bibles occurs in 1 Corinthians 2:1. And so it was with me, brothers and sisters. When I came to you, I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. The mistake concerns the word testimony. The evidence from our best manuscripts suggests the word ought to be mystery, which not many Bibles have. The final and most interesting passage to discuss is 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. We know this wasn't written by Paul because it directly contradicts what Paul says in the very same letter, where he actually gives rules for when women speak in the church, in 1 Corinthians 11, so we can be sure someone else wrote this passage. The interpolation is closely related to 1 Timothy 2:11-15. A woman must quietly receive instruction with entire submissiveness. But I do not allow a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man, but to remain quiet. For it was Adam who was first created, and then Eve. And it was not Adam who was deceived, but the woman being deceived, fell into transgression. But women will be preserved through the bearing of children if they continue in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint. It is unclear which one came first, but the author of one definitely knew about the other. This kind of raging sexism didn't even exist in very early Christianity. There are many reasons we know 1 Corinthians 14:34-35 is an interpolation, but we will only go over a few of them here. There are certain verbal parallels between the two passages that could not have been accidents. For example, 1 Timothy uses quietly, while 1 Corinthians uses silence. Both use a form of the word meaning to learn. 1 Corinthians uses submission, while 1 Timothy uses subjection, along with other examples. The wording is very similar. Although Clement of Alexandria, who died around 215 CE, cites 1 Corinthians 14:6, 9, 10, 13, and 20, and discusses the behavior of women in church, he does not refer to 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. and the earliest extant citation of these verses is apparently by Tertullian. This suggests that the verses were not originally in Paul's letter. And although 1 Corinthians 12 through 14 as a whole appears to be addressed specifically to the Corinthian church, verse 34 commands women be silent, quote, in churches, plural. This suggests a wider intended audience for verses 34 and 35. There is a lot of fascinating scholarship on just these two verses that I definitely suggest looking into. Luckily, we're not even at the good stuff yet. For further reading, check out On the Historicity of Jesus by Richard Carrier, David Fitzgerald's Nailed, Bart Ehrman's Forged, and Bart Ehrman's Misquoting Jesus. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and if you like the content, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. And if you really love us, consider supporting us on Patreon. Make sure to click that bell to get notified when we make a video, and check out our new website. Be sure to share if you learned something, and we'll see you next time.